Hey guys, I got a 2018 Honda Odyssey here, and I got some tips for doing the timing belt. So the timing marks can be really hard to see. I'll zoom in here. There's a dot or a line on the sprockets that line up to a line in the back on the engine itself. So when you're going to set this up with a new timing belt, it can be difficult to figure out which rib of the belt actually goes on the correct tooth of the sprocket. So what I like to do is put the engine in time, assuming this is just a maintenance job and there's not something that broke or anything like that. So we roll it over, we put it in time, and then we're gonna make our own marks that we will transfer to the new belt so that when we actually go to put the new belt on, we know we're putting it exactly where it goes the first time without any problems. Okay, so I got my lines made. I marked the belt. I also highlighted the timing marks that are originally there just so they're easier to see when it comes time to actually put this thing together. Down here on the crankshaft, the timing mark is actually on the top. So you can see the two arrows, one's on the sprocket and one's on the oil pump. There's no belt riding in that spot, so I actually make a mark straight at the bottom to the tooth on the belt. So you could do it over to the side, you could do it wherever you want, as long as when we're putting this together, the new belt has the marks in the same teeth as the old belt, and we're putting it on the marks that we made. So I figured I'd share why we're doing this timing belt. Not only is it at 98,000 or so and it hasn't been done, so it's due by mileage, I also noticed something while doing the inspection. So this is a common issue with Hondas that I've seen. The hydraulic tensioner actually begins to leak. So this is a self-contained fluid. This is basically like a shock absorber. When all that fluid leaks out, this thing can't keep the timing belt tight anymore. So I was doing an inspection and I saw it was a little damp, sticking out of the cover. So I figured we should probably get ahead of this thing before it becomes an issue. The other thing I noticed is the coolant is actually empty on this thing. In the reservoir, and it's actually low in the radiator too. So I looked around for leaks. There's no leaks visible outside the engine. So one thing that you do when you're doing a timing belt on most any car, if the water pump's driven by the timing belt, you replace the water pump. So now that I got this thing apart, evidence under the water pump that it's actually leaking was present. So that's looks like the weep hole. It's been slowly leaking over time, and whoever's been maintaining this thing hasn't been topping their coolant for them. So good news is we're taking care of the leaking tensioner, and we're also taking care of their coolant leak for them. Okay, so it's time to transfer the marks to the new belt. See here, I got it lined up. I'm holding my fingers inside the ribs and I slowly go around, keeping both the ribs lined up. I get to my next mark, line it up with this one, line it up with that one, put it on the new belt, do the same thing, go around. Now I've got my next marks lined up, mark those, and now I got it transferred to the new belt. When I go to put this on, I of course double check that I counted right or that I lined it up right. This one's already been double checked. I got to make sure that the mark that I made here where this marking is goes on that back camshaft again. So I'll put a little mark on here just telling me this is the rear camshaft, and then I'll mark the front camshaft, and then the crankshaft. If you see, the cam marks are on a female tooth, we'll call it, and then I go around to the crankshaft mark due to where I made it, it's actually on a male tooth. So pretty much I can't screw this up. The only thing you can do wrong in this case is if you mark the wrong side of the belt and put it on going the other direction. So when you make your marks, you have to make sure that you're putting the new belt on in the direction that you intended when you made the mark. Okay, so I'm going to put the belt on, and I got it down on the crankshaft on my timing mark, and I brought it up to the front camshaft here and got my mark on. But the advantage to having the marks to know which tooth it goes on, so when I'm going to put it on this back one, it takes a lot of effort to get it to reach the actual timing mark that it needs to go to. So if you didn't have the mark to know that I was shooting for this rib to line up with that mark, you might put it on wrong and find out once it's too late. So that's why we're putting the marks on here. So I'll grab a wrench and I'll turn this cam just a little forward so that way I know that I'm putting this on the right way without having to second guess myself. Okay, so got the belt on. I got my back mark, that pulley, I brought it forward. Got the belt on my mark here. The original timing mark's lining up with the original timing mark. Same thing on the front. Got my mark lining up. The original timing marks line up. Come down here to the crankshaft. My mark that I made lines up with the mark I transferred to the new belt, and the original timing marks line up. So now I'm going to turn the engine over and double check that everything lines up once the engine spins. So I got to spin the crankshaft twice so that the camshafts are back up at their position. So here we go. I have the spark plugs out. You don't necessarily have to pull the spark plugs out, but I'm doing them as maintenance anyway. So since there's no compression in the cylinders, it makes it really easy to turn the engine over. So we're going around, coming up towards top dead center of number one's compression stroke. Okay. So I went for the crankshaft. My paint marks aren't going to line up again, but you can see the crankshaft, the little arrow on the sprocket and the little arrow on the oil pump line up. We'll make sure that the timing mark on the cam sprocket is in line with the timing mark on the back there. That one's good. And now we're upside down here, but we have the front timing mark lines up too. So there's times where you do this, and if you didn't have those marks originally, you might find that we're off a tooth now, and then you have to pull everything apart and redo it. So the reason I do the paint marks, now we know we're right the first time. We've just double checked, we've confirmed that. Now all that's left to do is put everything back together. While we have the covers off, you can see the new water pumps installed. The two sprockets are now replaced. The hydraulic tensioner is now replaced. Everything in the timing belt system's new. So should be good for another 90,000 miles or so. All right, got it all back together. Things are running good. Our timing's dead on the money. Got coolant burp in here. Gonna run it probably till the thermostat opens. That way I know the whole system's flowing and I have all the air out. Come around, make sure I have heat. Oh yeah, it's nice and warm. So it's kind of cold out today. The heat's nice, but having heat in the car tells me there's no air in the heater core either. Hondas are usually pretty forgiving. Some cars you got to work to get the heat out of the heater core. So this tells me we're good to go here. Got a timing belt sticker made, 1111. Veterans Day. So happy Veterans Day. If you're a veteran, thank you for your service. If you're not, make sure you thank one. Always make a timing belt sticker. They come with the kits usually, but that tells the next person who looks at this car that the timing belt's been done. It even has the brand on it, so they know that a good part was used. I used ASIN. They make parts for the OE, I believe. I know they do Honda, Toyota, and some other people. I've used other brands in the past, and I've had just leaky water pumps and poor quality parts. So I've also seen people do a lot of things wrong on these. I don't know why that is. It's pretty straightforward, but just make sure whoever you're taking your car to, if you're doing it yourself, you put things back where you found them. You shouldn't gain bolts when you're done. They should go back in where you found them. And I know I left this one less broken than when I found it, so I'm happy about that. I've seen a lot of poor workmanship on this vehicle. We've done brakes and we found twisted brake hoses and no lubrication, no cleaning, just poor workmanship. Even the oil change, they had a loose oil filter that was the wrong size. We won't get into that just yet, but now they know they're in the right place. We use the good parts. We put the right filter on. We tighten the drain plug. Pretty simple stuff, but not everybody does that. So make sure whoever you're taking your car to knows what they're doing. This one, I think we've addressed all the issues that we found with the timing belt and the brakes and just a couple other little things. And I think they're going to be happy. So I'm ready to give it back. I got to test drive it, just make sure I have no issues, and we'll be good to go. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. No vehicles were harmed in the making of this film.